So next, let us move on to our first panel discussion of the day, AI technology and ethical thinking. As our team prepares the stage, let me introduce our moderator for this session, CEO Cheuk Fei,文灼非of Master Insight Media, a Hong Kong media platform focused on global public affairs. CEO Man is a veteran journalist and commentator known for his thoughtful global perspectives on public affairs. CEO Man, please. And I'll have you introduce our panelists and guide today's discussion.
Good afternoon. So the morning section is so good today. Let's give a round of applause to all the speakers, facilitators, and audience. My job today is a bit tough because it's before noontime, before lunchtime. So it should be quick and short to let you have enough time for the lunch. This is the panel discussion one. The topic is AI technology and ethical thinking. So AI, we talk a lot in this morning. So every people talk about AI almost every day. Recently, I visited Beijing to see a big AI company producing GPU, a very big company. And I also visited a company doing AI advertisement video in Shanghai, just a few days later when I visited Beijing. And I also visited an AI company focusing on gaming in Shenzhen. The founder is a Berkeley-trained computer scientist. So AI is so popular in China. So this panel is going to discuss AI technology and ethical thinking, a very hot topic. We have invited three remarkable panelists to share their insights. So I will introduce one by one a bit later. So Peter, Professor Hershock, and Dr. Brian Grimm, and Professor Sun from Zhejiang. So I would love to ask Professor Hershock in my first question. So I would like to introduce you first. Peter is director of the Asian Studies Development Program and past coordinator of the Human Artificial Intelligence Initiative at the East-West Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. He earned his doctorate in Asian and Comparative Philosophy from the University of Hawaii and his undergraduate degree in Western Philosophy from Yale University. He is trained in both Western and Asian philosophy with a specialization in Buddhist philosophy. His research and writing focus both on historical dimensions of Buddhist thought and practice and on their relevance to addressing such contemporary issues as technology and development, education, human rights, and the role of values in culture and social change. He has published more than 35 books, chapters, and journal articles on Buddhist thought, and has authored or edited more than a dozen books on Buddhism, Asian philosophy, and contemporary issues. So, Professor Hershock is a well-trained philosopher. When did you start doing research relating AI? Can you introduce the Human Artificial Intelligence Initiative at the East-West Center in Honolulu? I think it's quite a pioneer AI center in the US. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the organizers, Tzu Chi, for bringing us all here together. I think we're all here because we want to change the way things are changing, simply put. And the question really is, how do we go about doing that? How do we go about doing that most effectively? When I was invited to come, I was invited to do a presentation. So I've got a lot of things I'd like to say. But to talk about how I first got interested in artificial intelligence, it really is simply, I think there's one slide.
Yeah. Please. Yeah.
There. This is what I intend to talk about. It actually started many, many years ago on the island of Bali in Indonesia, and talking to a couple of a brother and sister about 8 years old. And they were selling water to tourists. And they looked at me and they said, "You look like MacGyver, the television character." And if anyone who knows that show, you know, in the days, he looked like me. And then I started asking them, you know, how did you watch MacGyver? Well, they were bringing videotapes into the village and watching communally as families, as a village, watching these American television shows. And I asked them about their own traditions. It's the one Hindu island in the islands archipelago of Indonesia. And they knew nothing about the Ramayana. They knew nothing about Krishna and Arjuna. They knew about Dallas. They knew about these characters in American TV. And I started thinking, how is this global digital media affecting ourselves as persons and as communities to the extent that young people do not understand their own traditions, their own historical legacy? And I started looking at that and thought, there's lots to be done with this. So it's really about bringing technology for goodness is an alignment issue. And when we talk about alignment, if you're an engineer and you ask somebody what's an alignment problem, they say, well, you know, you're an engineer, you figure out how to specify very clearly the objectives of your system, your AI system, and then you try to figure out ways to make sure that that system very robustly realizes those specified aims. If you're talking about misalignment, it's things like accidents of design and misuse by design. Accident of design would be algorithmic bias. Misuse by design, using AI to perpetrate, say, identity theft. But that doesn't exhaust all the alignment issues that we have with artificial intelligence. There's the issue of how do you align AI, technology more broadly, with real human interests. And the problem there is that we human beings don't agree. We don't agree on what's in humanity's best interest. So all of these declarations of AI principles that have been proliferating for the last 15 years around the world all say the same kinds of things. AI that's aligned with human values. AI that does good for humanity. And if you ask people which values, what do those values mean in practice, then you start to see real differences. Because in fact, we don't have fundamental agreement on that. So alignment is not a problem that can be solved because we already know what the conditions of solution would be. It's really a predicament that we can only resolve by gaining two kinds of clarification. One is clarity about how things got to be the way they are, and then a new sense of commitment, a new set of values, a constellation of values that will allow us to move forward together. What I'd like to do quite quickly is to just give some reasons why we might want to take some Buddhist concepts very seriously in addressing this larger alignment issue, because AI is not just a mirror of humanity. It's not simply a mirror. AI is our agential partner. And if we don't get that partnership right, we will go very wrong. Because if you hold up the mirror of AI to humanity today, what we see in that mirror is not very pleasant. We see Gaza, we see Sudan, we see what's going on in Ukraine. We see so many things that are going on in our world that if AI is reflecting that back to us and intensifying it, then we're in deep trouble. So in part, it's yes, we need to get aligned together. And what does that alignment look like? I want to suggest we take seriously the two Buddhist causal insights. That is, the Buddhist answer to how do you understand the causes of conflict and suffering, and how do you go about dealing with that? It's very simple. All of our experiences, matter, the world of material events, physical events, and the world of phenomenal events, our experience, are intimately entangled. That a consistently enacted patterns of values and intentions will give you consonant patterns of experiential and material outcomes and opportunities. Outcomes meaning you get the results of your past experience, karma. Karma also gives you an opportunity to change those patterns of intentions and values. Change the way you're enacting them, realize entirely different kinds of outcomes and opportunities. The second teaching is independent existence is an illusion. Everything arises interdependently. And if you put those two teachings together, it ultimately says everything is only what it means for other things. We each are only what we mean for others. and this includes AI. AI will only mean for us humans what we are as humans in relating to AI. That's an interdependent relationship. And what's occurring now is an articulation of relative autonomy between humanity and artificial systems. It's an agential frontier along which we're negotiating the terms of our interdependence. I want to raise as kind of an issue this idea that technology is just a tool and we use it, it's good for us, it's bad for us. It's like a hammer. You can use a hammer. I used to work as a carpenter. I built my own house. You can use a hammer to build a house, but the home that I bought was a 2-bedroom teardown. I had to first tear down the home before I built a new one. Hammer did both jobs really well. Tear down the old house, build the new one. But everything is not reducible to just tools. Tools are artifacts that we human beings create to help us to perform certain functions. And we assess them totally in terms of their task-specific utility, how well they do the jobs we design them to do. But sometimes tools can get to a point where they're so ubiquitous in society. Take the smartphone, that you honestly cannot live without it. With most tools, you have exit rights. You can decide to use a hammer or not use a hammer. You don't have exit rights when a tool gets scaled up to that level of ubiquity, because then you continue to be affected. Even if you don't use a smartphone today, your families, your professional engagements, everything that you do in the world is mediated through this. Technologies are not reducible to tools. Technologies are relational systems that have values infused into them that serve the purpose of accelerating and scaling up human intentions and values. We do not have exit rights from technologies. We are interdependent with the technologies we develop to the extent that, in some ways, you could say human beings and technologies have a relationship not unlike that between species and ecosystems. Species interactions give rise to ecosystems, but ecosystems then have downward causal pressure on species. It's the same type of thing. So we are in that relationship with AI. Should we be concerned? I'll just give one example, the attention economy. People talk about attention economy as the foundation for the digital economy, and it's true. The algorithmic systems that are there in search, recommendation engines that run social media, et cetera, these are all based on capturing human attention, holding that attention, and redirecting it. Now that seems innocuous. It's just a matter of time spent on screen. And we talk about the 4.5 hours a day that the average human being on the planet spends on digital media. And if time, as Thomas Edison said, is our real only capital as human beings, that's a concern. Because 4.5 hours a day, 30 billion hours a day of human attention energy invested typically in ways that come at zero interest or leave you at a loss. So that's a concern. But attention is not just a measure of time. Attention is a measure, an index of what matters to us. It's an index of significance. And the capacity to capture, hold, and direct our attention is a capacity to change the conditions of our agency in the world. If we do not have freedom of attention, we don't really have freedom of intention. And if we don't have freedom of intention, every other freedom is either impossible or illusory. We need to be careful. Is it just a dire situation that we're in and we have no hope of going anywhere further? No, I don't think we do. We have some really good evidence from Buddhism and from evolutionary theory about how we ought to be thinking about things. Take evolutionary theory. The old version, Darwinian theory, is you have random variations, blind natural selection, competition that leads to survival of the fittest. Old model of evolution. We now know that that does operate, but it doesn't tell us what happens at those key turning points in evolution, from inorganic to organic, from single-celled organisms to multi-celled, from multi-celled to ecosystems, or from biology to culture. At these evolutionary turning points, what's taking place is the development of new communities of increasingly differentiating members that are aligned together pursuing higher order aims than were present for any of the individuals. It's about collaborative catalytic communities where individual members of the communities don't just differ from each other, they differ for one another. This is what is the strong concept of diversity. That what those communities are doing at these evolutionary turning points is engaging in new kinds of collaborative genius. They're opening up the horizons of what is relevant and what the responsive possibilities are, and with we human beings, the responsibilities that are associated with that. Collaboration, collaborative genius. The Buddha was asked, how do you get rid of conflict and suffering? You know, ignorance, get rid of craving forms of desire, etc. But there was one talk he had with the god Sokka, and the god Sokka said, you know, I've been observing humanity for thousands of years, and it's the same thing. Humans know everything there is to know about living without enmity and hatred and conflict and suffering, and they don't do it. Why? And the Buddha's ultimate answer was prapancha. It's the mental proliferation of conceptual relational blockages. Sokka asked, how do you cut through that taproot of conflict and suffering? And his answer was interesting because it sounded like the kind of things you tell your 2-year-old. Do good, avoid evil. If it's kushala, keep doing it. If it's akushala, stop doing it. But the term kushala, it's the Chinese translation of shan, this term that we have for goodness. It doesn't just mean good. What it means is something that's practically efficacious and morally excellent. It's a combination of those two, a practical and moral excellence. The term kushala in Sanskrit is a superlative. It doesn't just mean doing the good as opposed to the bad. It means doing the virtuosic. So what we need is virtuosic intelligence so that our partnership with artificial intelligence can be one that truly leads to the end of conflict and suffering. Happy to have plenty of conversations with you further about this.
Thank you very much, Peter, for your excellent presentation. So our next speaker, Dr. Brian Grimm, is a globally recognized expert on the socio-economic impact of religious freedom. He is the founding president of the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation and served as the global chair of Dare to Overcome, an initiative that fosters mutual respect and engagement among diverse faith and belief groups in workplace welfare. With a PhD in quantitative sociology from Pennsylvania State University, Dr. Grimm has authored numerous academic articles and books. His pioneer work at the Poe Research Center led to the development of the global indexes measuring government restrictions on religion and social hostilities involving religion, which are now key tools for monitoring religious freedom worldwide. Dr. Grimm's research has shown that religion contributes approximately $1.2 trillion annually to the US economy, surpassing the combined revenues of the top tech companies like Apple, Amazon, and Google. His approach to religious freedom emphasizes building inclusive environments for people of all faiths and those without religion affiliation. Dr. Grimm, can you share with us the vision and mission of your Religious Freedom and Business Foundation? Please.
Yeah, well, thank you. And wonderful to be with all of you. It's a great discussion. Yeah. And when you think of religion, oftentimes you think of a panel of people wearing religious outfits, you know, of someone wearing a monk's outfit, a priest wearing a priest's outfit, a rabbi wearing a rabbi's outfit, and they have religious discussions. And what I've recognized is that most religion happens more like it's happening in this room, where people of faith are taking their deeply held beliefs, their convictions, and trying to live the best life they can that has a good impact for their world and their family, motivated by their faith. And so with religious freedom, when you don't make people push down that identity, and you know, I know there, you know, with Tzu Chi Foundation, there's a great depth and wealth of Buddhist identity and motivation, and you know, giving up a great tech career to come and pursue this mission. So, you know, this is what religious freedom is about. It's about that those deep wells within us of our beliefs, and then how does that make us see the world differently? Even though, like I'm Catholic, I have many Muslim, Hindu, Jewish friends, Buddhist friends. We each have our deep beliefs that are very different. We have a very particular view of salvation or the future. Is it a cycle, or is there a destination, or things like that? But deep down, the commonality in faiths are that it's giving us a purpose, something we're living for that's beyond making money, beyond those material things. And in the Hindu tradition, just prosperity and making wealth is part of the religion. That there's nothing wrong with that. But if you look at the Hindu system, it's that push for prosperity or a livelihood or the self-realization is more than just the wealth. It's looking at what your duties are, your responsibilities, your community. So as I work with people, like I work with a lot of big companies, Google, some of the ones that you mentioned, our partners, American Airlines, the largest airline in the world. And so I work with people and companies, and it's people who are, most people in the world have a faith, and they're trying to live that out, often in a secular environment. So part of getting to your question of what I do in the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation is help businesses, organizations see that if they let their people bring their, you may know the mantra, bring your whole self to work. And one of my good Muslim friends, he said at Intel Corporation, where they've made a faith-friendly workplace environment, he said, I can bring my whole soul to work. And can you imagine if people bring their whole soul to work, however you might think of your soul, but that deepest, most important conviction in your heart, that will change things. And so in the foundation, we work with these companies to help them open their workplaces, to let people of faith bring their inspiration to the workplace. And, I just look, if I can end with this, looking, I don't know if Dr. Ray, Dr. Her, is anybody going to explain these two posters? Do you have a speaker that will explain those? Someone will explain them later? You will, okay. So he's going to explain this wonderful innovation that Tzu Chi Foundation, and I was able to visit Da'ai Technologies the other day, where they have thousands of people across Taiwan. I don't know how many centers, but 5,000 recycling centers, or maybe more. How many? 8,000. Worldwide, but across Taiwan, just take that as an example. They have these recycling centers taking plastics and other recyclable materials. And if you see the uniforms that the people from Tzu Chi are wearing, no, I won't use the slide. But if you look at their uniforms, they're made from the recycled plastic. Yeah, the coats, the ties, the shirt, the tie, and your pants. And then you can look at their recycled materials. And all of this is a business that's come out of this Buddhist conviction of caring for one another. And then recycling this, and there's even blankets that I think more than 1 billion blankets have been distributed for disaster. So this business in itself involves 100,000 people, more than 100,000 people as volunteers, some as employees to do that. So imagine this, if we think that's back on this one question on AI, will AI replace a lot of jobs? So in the future, the economy is changing, and we have an opportunity for a new vision of economy. And that's what I see Tzu Chi demonstrating is a social mission of business. Thinking of what are the needs of society, creating a business that's run on conviction and human good rather than for algorithms or making profit or a return on profit. So, as I think of what religion does, I look, around this room and some of the examples here, and that's where religious freedom is so important, so that we don't push down this. Where do ethics come from? Many come from our religions, so we want to bring that to the fore in our economy as well.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah. So our third panelist, Professor孙英刚from Zhejiang University. Professor Sun got a BA and MA from Chinese history from Beijing University and a PhD from Princeton University. Professor Sun focuses on history of medieval China and history of Buddhism. He's a professor and executive vice dean of the School of History at Zhejiang University. He is a recipient of the Ministry of Education's Young Changjiang Scholars Award and served as the chief expert for a major project under the National Social Science Fund. Additionally, he is the vice president of the Chinese Society for the Study of the Wei, Jin, Southern and Northern dynasties. His research focuses on the history of Buddhism, medieval history, and the Silk Road. He has published several works, including The Era of Devon, Texas, A History of Grand Haran Civilization, and the history of the Sui, Tang, and 5 dynasties. He has authored over 100 academic papers, published in journals such as Historical Research, Chinese Historical Research, and World Religious Studies. He acts as the editor-in-chief of Studies in History and Buddhism and a translation series published by the Zhongxi Book Company in Shanghai. He has been invited multiple times to conduct research and teach at academic institutions in Europe, America, Japan, and Taiwan. He was visiting scholars to Yale University, Tokyo University, and Chuo University. So, Professor Sun, Hangzhou is a pioneer city in applying AI. As we all know, the 6 little dragons are very well known worldwide now. So as a historian, how do you see AI in your teaching and research in Zhejiang University?
是一个非常好的问题啊！他提到了杭州的6小龙，谢谢文先生的介绍，太长了
啊，不客气。
因为我对技术呀，还有 AI 呀，其实这个了解不多，但是我可以作为一个历史学家，还有就是大学的这个管理者呀，对这个有些观察可以跟大家分享哈。那么第一个呢，就是他对这个我们这个大学教育和学生培养的影响，这个影响可能我们严重的低估了，因为就浙江大学来讲哈，我的观察就是这一次的这个人工智能和 AI 的流行，它对这个学科产生了重大的冲击。就是总结起来讲的话，它是以消灭这个标准化的知识为特征的，一些一般的知识、普通的常识，现在逐渐的从大学课堂上被清除出去了，因为不适应了。有很多学科现在面临着重大的转型，比如说我们以前有大量的外语学院，几乎每个大陆的大学都有一个庞大的外语学院，因为中国刚改革开放需要外语人才，需要外贸人才，培养了很多很多的这方面的人才，但是现在因为这个人工智能的推进，尤其是像 DeepSeek 呀、ChatGPT 呀，它让这个翻译就瞬间完成，而且这个不知疲倦。还有呢，它的这个能力非常的强，甚至就是学术的翻译，我不知道大家了解不了解，学术的翻译，它居然翻译的比我们学者可能还要好，而且越来越好。我曾经用它来翻译粟特语，就是苏格丁这种古语言，还有那个古藏文。它的翻译能力都比这个我们现在的学者强，所以这个外语这个学科就受到非常大的冲击。那么大陆现在这个大量的外语学院可能要关门，就是复旦大学已经把很多小语种关掉了。那么外语的研究现在要向文明这转型，不能只研究语言，它要研究这个地方的文明，这个地方的政治、经济、社会各个方面。那么另外，比如说我们的那个法学。 法学院现在受冲击非常的大，因为这个 AI 它背那个法条呀、背判例啊，它背的比人熟。就基本上你把你这个案件的这些要素输进去之后，他还把过去所有的这个给你这个 case 都给你找出来，然后就是还告诉你各种的解决方案。那么就是我们明显感觉到的就是过去这几年呢，浙江大学的我们招生的情况，3个学院的分数线明显下降了。就是去年排名最低的，大家都没有想到，我们去年浙江大学招生分数线最低的学院是哪个学院呢？新闻学院。因为实在是不好找工作，现在都是自媒体，没人再看 newspaper 了，而且大陆大量的电视台现在要整合，也没有人看电视，所以受很大的冲击。那么外语，包括法律啊，我觉得这个很多标准化的知识啊，都受很大的影响，甚至医学，这是我的一个观察。但是反过来讲呢，我觉得对大学教育提出了新的要求，就是学生的这个教育的内容，就是尤其是我们这个主题提到这个 thinking， 可能呀就是对学生他的评价标准我们要改变，就是可能不能以统一的标准来要求每一个学生。实际上呢，就是我们后来回顾啊，就是文先生提到的这个6小龙啊，这些创始人啊，很多都不是我们原来意义上的好学生，都是一些非常奇怪的人，就是以我们现在的标准来看。那比如说 DeepSeek 的创始人是梁文峰，是我们浙江大学的一个本科生。他毕业之后，他也不找工作，他也不他也没有去考公务员呀，也没有，他就在家里就捣鼓这个量化。后来他就做了这个 DeepSeek，就是一下就我们以前根本就没听说过他一下就成了。那么现在成了非常重要的一个公司。后来我们也去找他，我们说你在浙江大学学到最好的东西是什么？他说那个课堂上没学什么东西。他说我最重要的是老师。他说他的老师是很厉害的一个老师。他说我受益最多的是我的老师从校外找了很多人，经常给我们来组织那个小的 workshop，然后他从那个 workshop 里面学到了东西。这是一个。另外一个还有6小龙里面有一个语数科技，做人形机器人的。也是很年轻的一个年轻人，他是被浙江大学淘汰的，因为他考研究生没考上，我们没有录取他，因为他分数不够。然后为什么分数不够呢？因为他外语考不过，他英语不好，他考不过外语，所以后来呢，我们一直在反省，是不是必须把外语作为这个研究生入学的必备的科目。所以后来一致决定把外语作为参考，因为这个是不是影响了我们对学生的判断？所以以后可能这个对大学教育会有很多的冲击。就是我们如果判定什么样的教育是好的，学生到底需要什么样的知识？怎么判定一个学生是优秀的学生？在这种新的这种状况下呀，可能呀会产生很大的这个连锁反应，学科、学校、学生都可能。当然，这在进行过程当中，我想今后我们会面临这个问题越来越严重，这是一个。那么另外一个呢，我的观察，因为作为历史学家哈，其实我的担忧呢，今天前面的老师啊，前面的先生都已经提到了啊，比如说李佳杰先生他提到的，其实作为历史学家，我们以前也都特别担心这样的一个问题。为什么呢？我们分析历史上历次的工业革命。这一次的工业革命跟以前的工业革命是完全不一样的。以前的工业革命它是替代关系，比如说第一次工业革命，它发明了蒸汽机以后，以前可能赶着马车，他是个马夫，那么有了蒸汽机之后，他可能是司机，他是替代。但是这一次工业革命非常明确，尤其是最近几年，我们看得非常清楚，它是以人工智能为核心的，它以无人化为特征。它消灭了大量的工作，但是它没有创造出新的工作来。在大陆我们看得非常清楚，比如说，它一个 APP， 它一个 App， 一个买菜的 App， 它就干掉了几万家的社区的小摊贩。然后现在它还要把出租车司机取代掉，因为现在有人自动驾驶，这个速度推进太快，我觉得太快了。太快了之后，它就会再造成大量的社会问题，而这个社会问题可能我们低估了。非常严重， 因为现在这个生产力跟生产关系是不匹配的，生产力在急剧的扩张，生产力大量的这个生产东西，就毫不夸张的说，把大陆的这个工厂关掉一半，它生产的东西都够大陆人消费了，所以它产生了大量的过剩。大量过剩的结果，那么当然我们也想了很多的办法，比如说我们在推进“一带一路”，其实“一带一路”很重要的目的就是要把过剩的产能推出去。这个是一个非常重要的目的，但是这个过程啊，我想是比较艰难的。就是说，我们如何来化解生产力极度扩大，但是呢，我们的这个生产关系没有理顺这样的问题。它是一个革命性的变化，大家可能没有想到，它消灭了大量的中间环节。这次工业革命，我仔细总结，如果我们总结一句话的话，它是以消灭中间环节为特征的，凡是低劣都被干掉。直接就是内容，就是产品提供者直接对客户，所以大家去看那些售货员就没有了。还有什么呢？他把小偷都消灭了。小偷是中国几千年辉煌的一个职业啊，人家这个苦练本领啥的，到现在整个大陆几乎没有了，没有用，因为你要怎么着？他没有钱，你难道抢他的手机吗？还要怎么样？所以他中间所有的中间环节都面临着这样的一个颠覆性的一个代价，所以这也是我觉得将来政府面临的最大的难题，它怎么来满足就是说生产极度扩张下的这个每个人找到自己的意义，尤其是对这个新生代来讲，就是说他如何在这样的一个存量的世界里找到意义。我觉得这就是回到我们这个主题，就是我们慈济啊，包括严先生、何先生推的这个善文明、善经济，我一直觉得这个非常重要。在哪儿呢？物质生产极度的扩张以后，它其实还留了一个余地，就是精神、文化、信仰，它反而是极度的需求的。所以接下来大家会看到传统文化的产业的复兴，大量的跟信仰、精神有关的产品会制造出来。其实人形机器人，我后来仔细想想，它其实提供的是精神产品。首先，利润出口应该是游戏和陪护。它并不是其他的，大家想的不要太高大上。我想它首先能赚钱，就是一个带来的愉悦，这是可能根本性的，所以它还是精神产品。所以这个文化、信仰和精神，既是提供新的工作岗位，既是提供新的需求，同时它会调节生产关系，调节这个社会的关系，然后让这个社会能够平稳的完成这样的过渡。因为这个到时候很可能一大半的小孩子找不到工作，这不是说真正意义上的找不到工作，可能找不到定位吧。所以你看，大陆从去年开始把所有的到乡村去知识扶贫的大学生，整建制的转化成公务员。为什么呢？就是一下把他们工作都解决了，但是实际上他们的收入并没有增加，他只是身份变了，只是他把它吸收掉，但这也是一个办法，这是我的一个第二个观察。第三个观察呢，我觉得就是说，它跟全球化其实非常密切的。我作为历史学家呢，我对全球化的看法呢，可能略有不同哈。我觉得在人类历史上呢，有2次特别成功的全球化。第一次全球化实际上就是公元前后大乘佛教兴起，就是它是以慈悲为怀、众生平等为口号的，那在当时是非常了不起的。当时还是在强调有血缘的爱，强调宗族的情况下，居然能喊出众生平等，能喊出慈悲为怀。所以在大乘佛教为口号，以陆上丝绸之路为基质的那一次全球化非常成功，大概在1000年之内啊，横扫了整个的欧亚的东部，因为当时还没有南北美洲，没有澳大利亚，也没有非洲北部，所以实际上就是世界，就是一次全球化。但那次全球化的成果基本上是落在中国的，就是中国经过300年的战乱、黑暗之后呢，又通过佛教重整了社会，又站到了这个文明的前列，就是在唐朝。第2次特别成功的全球化，我觉得大家都非常清楚，就是发端于西方的。法国大革命喊出了自由、平等、博爱这样的一个旗帜下， 进行了200多年的全球化，到现在为止我们还在享受它的成果。但现在的问题呢，就是说大家可能是比较乐观，我比较悲观，因为历史学家都比较悲观，因为任何一个全球化最后都会崩盘，就是大家不要不信，它一定会崩盘，所以它最后会走到极端，就是孔夫子说的礼崩乐坏。那么自由平等博爱这个口号下，它会不会走到极端去？极端政治正确，极端左派。那在这种情况下，它最后就可能这个游戏就玩不下去了。那么历史上的经验就是，一旦玩不下去，全球化就会崩盘，全球化就会逆转。所以我们以为的全球化，它是很脆弱的。从15年以来，这10年，我们看到了全球范围内的原教旨主义兴起，看到了这个各帝国的复活，看到了各文明的冲突。几乎每一个文明都在向民族主义复归。所以冲突就越来越激烈。那川普最典型 ，Make American Great Again， 就是回归美国本位嘛。我们中国20大呀，确立的中国共产党在新时代的主要工作任务是什么？大家可能这个我们这边的朋友可能不熟悉，在国内是要背的。要背熟，就是我们党在新时代的工作是什么，中心任务是什么？我告诉大家，我们党在新时代的最主要的工作只有一个：实现中华民族伟大复兴。对，你们英语很好，可以帮我翻译一下，实现中华民族伟大复兴的英文怎么说？就最好的翻译就是 Make China Great Again。
好。
所以实际上，东西方这个 G2啊，这2个大国啊，同时回到了民族主义，同时回到了基本盘，同时回到了原教旨主义。所以我对未来的趋势判断跟很多人都不同。我认为不是全球化，可能在很长一段时间内，半个世纪以内，可能是区域一体化。美国会把重心放到它的美洲去，中国会经营中国的周边，然后我们会看到一个新秩序的出现，但这个新秩序不知道，所以我们现在就有一个任务，我们要提出一个新的理念，但这个理念到底由哪个文明来提出不知道。自由平等博爱如果不行了，是不是能换成比如说利他共善和合？
好，
这是我的一个想法啊。好，谢谢大家。
Thank you, Professor Sun.
好，谢谢。
Professor Sun has raised some critical issues during the AI trend. So can Peter respond to Professor Sun's the ethical issue crossed by the AI fantasy? Please, Peter.
Well, I was only getting it in translation and having a little difficulty hearing both. But I did pick up on this issue of make China great again, make America great again. And I think that's really not the way humanity ought to be going. Because the whole thing about AI is it is trained on human data. That is human determinations of what matters. People talk about data as the new oil or the new water, and it's not. Data is not matter. Data is a recording of a measurement for something that matters to human beings in some way or another. So it's a bit more like a language than it is a natural resource. And like all languages, you can say lots with a language, but language diversity gives humanity the capacity for saying things that can't be said. In one language, you can say it in another. And I think that the competition between the United States and China over AI is mistaken. It's like the competition in the Cold War, which was presumed to be zero-sum, which was presumed to result in either checkmate or stalemate. Checkmate, one side wins, the other side loses. That's bad for humanity. I think the worst possible world would be America ruling the world. I will say that straight out. I don't think it would be much better with China ruling the world, as China is today, because that doesn't take into account the diversity of the human experience. Latin America, Africa, the Polynesian experience. There are so many different ways of being human, and we need data from all humanity to be part of this. And the idea that we could have a segregation of different data systems, firewalled out so only the Americans deal with American data, China deals with China's data, that's okay if what you're looking for is something that's good for Chinese or good for Americans or good for Europeans, what have you. But if you want to benefit humanity as a whole, then you need global data. You need data on all human beings to address, for example, to have AI be able to address human health problems. You need all humans to be represented in that, not just some. So I think that we are at a challenging moment where the new geopolitical order would be one that will require real diversity of approaches to engaging with issues of governance, where diversity is not about just numeric difference. It's when the difference is present, become the basis of mutual contribution to sustainably shared flourishing. And this is what, Qianren He, it's taking everything under heaven and bringing them together harmoniously in a way that does not produce the mistake of saying there's one way to live. We need many ways of understanding how we live, and for our differences to become strengths. That's the evolutionary lesson. Our differences can and should become strengths, not things to overcome.
Thank you, Peter. Brian, can you share your ideas about the critical issues concerning the ethical problem that we are facing, the AI crossed? Please, Brian.
Yeah, I think in lots of discussions there's the doomsday scenarios, and then there's the sort of everything's going to be okay scenarios. And I think that the real challenge that I've seen in discussion is I'm not sure that anybody here writes AI code. Are there any coders in here that are actually putting inside the black box what goes in there?
No.
No one.
No one.
So we're all illiterate on this topic. Truly, we're talking in theory, and the people who are actually doing this are unknown to us. Do we know their values? Do we know who they are? And, I've had, just as one example, in India, in Hyderabad, Salesforce, which is one of the leading technology firms that's engaging with AI, they invited me to come and speak about religious freedom and artificial intelligence and the challenges. And so I can list them, when you can recognize people's faces, then you can, that's good for security. I can walk through airports and not have to pull my passport out. That's convenient. But then if they start identifying, well, you're this race, or you're this ethnicity, or you're this religion, and then, well, that's bad, and then they put you in the box, that's a danger. So I could talk about those things, and I asked the same question in this room full of more people than this at Salesforce, and I had just walked by a room where I saw all this code up on a screen. It was a black screen and white code, and there were 8 people in there, and they were all talking about it, and I looked at it, and I thought, I have no clue what that is. And then in this room of Salesforce people, I asked how many of you, maybe 100 people, how many of you would know what was going on in that room? And about 6 hands out of 100 went out.
Wow.
So even in a tech firm with a lot of tech people, even there the people didn't know what was going in. So for me, nuclear weapons, there's some parallels being drawn. You don't have to be a nuclear physicist to realize what nuclear bombs can do and the danger there. The same here, but I think I'm just worried because nuclear science, they're scientists, and artificial intelligence people are something different. It's like they're like Google people sleeping underneath their desks and coming up and doing things. So how much ethics are in their brains, when they're choosing languages? And even I'll just end with this. On the language models, I had a presentation that I didn't end up showing, but one of the religions I was going to draw some principles from was Jainism. I don't know if you all know Jainism, but are they represented? And then there's Zoroastrianism, or in India it's Parsi. are their thoughts and ethics being put in? And I guess the answer is no. And you're rich, that rich human experience. So even, I would guess that most people that are working in the black boxes haven't heard of, most religions and most things. So I think that's where some of my concern is that this is a great discussion, but that some of the critical people are not here.
Thank you very much, Brian. 孙教授，你是佛学的专家，你觉得佛教能帮点什么忙？在这个 AI 浪潮，那个 Buddhism can do anything to solve the problem？
这个如果 personal 的讲的话，我觉得佛教很有用。我非常喜欢那个佛教里的一个说法，叫本自具足。这个确实是在很多时候，工作压力大呀，什么事这个碰到问题的时候都能拯救我。这是我自己就是内心充盈的，我自己就是很圆满的，我不需要往外求，然后一切的我可以接受一切的结果。其实佛教作为一个哲学体系很厉害，同时它作为一个精神源泉其实也很厉害，也很厉害。儒家学说，实际上它是个变动的体系。他在汉唐时候，他是强调天人关系的，强调天，所有都是来自于天，连君主都是必须受命于天才能统治人民的，所以他强调的是规律，强调的是天。但是我们看到，就是受到佛教影响之后的这个儒家，到了宋朝以后，也强调人心，也强调就是从韩愈一直到朱熹、王阳明啊，就也强调个人心性的修行。我觉得这个实际上也是佛教的贡献，就是，我在大陆，我经常我有一个观点跟主流的观点不太一样，他们老是说佛教是个外来宗教，然后我就说这个很奇怪这个说法，因为佛教进入中国都已经2000年了，然后它早就是中国文化固有不可分割的一部分，你如果把佛教抽掉，中国文化其实就丢掉非常多的东西了。你比如说艺术，你除掉佛教就没有了莫高窟，没有了龙门，没有了云岗，没有了柯子儿，那
敦煌啊，
对，敦煌也没有了。然后这个哲学体系也不完整，其实很多都是，而且的话，这个中国的佛教跟原始印度佛教的精神是完全不一样的。原始印度佛教强调自我修行、自我成就。但是中国佛教特别强调的就是说，你除了自己成就，你还要帮助众生一起成就。所以我们的佛教的核心精神是什么呢？是菩萨。菩萨信仰是东亚信仰的根基，就是中日韩。除了中日韩，其他地方菩萨信仰都不重要的啊！你们去看南亚呀，这些地方都不重要。菩萨精神，我研究早期佛教，研究犍陀罗，其实那个最初的时候的菩萨精神呢，就是核心精神就2点，第一个就是慈悲为怀，就是帮助众生，帮助其他人。第二个呢就是勇猛精进，这样的一个精神，我觉得对中国对整个东亚来说都非常重要。还有一个呢，因为我也研究一点早期基督教的历史。其实，在基督教的情况跟佛教在历史上的脉络有点像。基督教也是发源于这个巴勒斯坦嘛，发源这个地方，然后它传到欧洲，然后欧洲接纳了它，然后它逐渐的，其实欧洲化或者西方化。但是西方学者从来就不说基督教是个外来宗教，然后到了欧洲，然后逐渐的欧洲化了，变成我们的宗教。但是我们老是说佛教是外来宗教，其实佛教传入中国的时间比基督教传入欧洲的时间要早。所以这个我觉得很多观念我们要不断的讲，就是佛教就是中国文化、中国精神，可能还是更准确一点。
We only have 3 minutes left. I would love to accept one question from the floor. This gentleman, please. Yeah. Give a mic to this gentleman. Yeah. One short question, and we have lunch later. Doesn't work? Another mic, please. It's okay.
Hi, hello. Hello, gentlemen. I'm Davis, and I'm a journalism student, and currently I'm having my journalism internship. And I have one question for all of the gentlemen on the stage. So we mentioned about, you guys mentioned about the AI is replacing humans' job, and the world after the AI area is going to have two summits, which is United States and China. So the question is, do you guys think that AI is bringing inequality or equality, as AI's vision is to bring people the equality and everyone's equal? And another question for Professor Sun, do you think journalism students are really hard to find a job? Because personally I am, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Peter, Brian, and Professor Sun, short answer, and then we have lunch. Okay.
I think as current AI and let's just call it digital technology are oriented, they are not promoting greater equity. Equality is a complicated issue because equality according to what? Is it equality according to educational access? That's one thing. Yes, it can help with that. Is it equality with respect to educational outcomes? That's a different question. So I think we just want to be sophisticated about the question. But currently, as the systems are oriented, they're making some people fabulously wealthy and not helping the vast majority of the world's people.
Brian?
Some of the companies I work with, they've shed tens of thousands of workers because AI has replaced their positions. They don't need them. And then in some of these same companies, there's a global media organization that they're requiring every staff member or every employee to at least use AI for 40% of their tasks. Their job evaluation is based on that. So, people are losing jobs, and then those who can see how to use it and are effective succeed, and those who don't. So it's slicing. I can't quite answer equality, but it is slicing people away. People who can't adapt to it are sliced away, and so I think from a faith-based concern, our concern is for those being pushed to the side is so essential.
Professor Sun, please.
那个是非常好的问题哈，就是说这个 AI 能不能带来更多的平等或者是不平等哈？其实这个问题其实比较难回答的。可能我的导师呀，我的博士导师是本杰明·阿尔曼，他是这个美国非常有名的做科技史的这个学者，他有一本书叫《On Their Own Terms》，就是哈佛大学出版的。出版社出产的，当时他书出版之后呢，也有人问他一个问题，那问题是说，如果要是网络这个技术如果在文革时期的话，能不能防止文革的这个发生？然后他说，这个可能技术本身不能改变这个社会的这个一些起伏，也许呢这个更厉害，因为这个网络会给这个政治动员提供更便利的工具，然后让这个事情发展得更癫狂。所以技术可能它不能改变一些精神方面的东西，精神信仰、文化这些东西还是回到人来解决的。技术它是好是坏不知道，就是说它怎么用的问题。然后另外一个你说这个找工作的问题，我觉得是这样哈。我说的是一般的我观察到的情况，就是我告诉的事实，就是现在你看大陆的招生它确实受到影响了，就报考新闻的少了，那么这个是市场的反应。但是呢，我的感觉是就是有这种人工智能啊这些东西出现之后，其实反而呢让这个从事新闻工作的这个朋友呢有可能成为超级个体。就是因为自媒体越来越重要，如果你自己就是一个超大的 IP， 你可能你自己的发言就可能超过一个报纸，超过一个甚至超过官方的这个声音都是有可能的。所以 实际我上个问题我没有说清楚。其实我还有一个预测，就是 AI 这个推行之后会产生在各行各业产生一大批的超级个体，就是这些超级个体可能他一个人借助这种放大的力量，他可能干掉了一个公司，干掉了一个行业都有可能，这也很可怕。但是呢，这个可能也不好评价是好是坏，是你像我文先生，要是他再年轻一点，他有可能成超级个体，对吧？他一个人可能就相当，他可能发个帖子就几十万、几百万人看，他可能早就超过一个报纸的阅读量。
Thank you.
谢谢。
My media company is always recruiting interns like you. So please join us. I bring 2 Hong Kong University interns today. So they are always learning. So you can keep learning. And you will become a AI expert in future, doing great media stories for the audience. Thank you so much for 3 panelists today. Their insightful sharing. So after lunch we have afternoon section. So please keep stay with us in the afternoon. There's a lot of new panels and excellent speakers sharing with you. Thank you.